A patient of mine, a 67-year-old man named Arthur, sat in my office, not with a physical complaint, but with a look of profound defeat. He was a man who had built a successful company from nothing, raised a family, and commanded respect in his community. Yet he confessed to me in a near whisper, "Doc, I feel like a stranger in my own body. The man I was, the man who felt strong and in control, he's gone, and what's left feels broken." He wasn't talking about a disease. He was talking about a quiet, creeping erosion of his vitality, a loss of connection to his own physical self, and it was centered around the most private aspect of his life. He thought this slow fade was just an inevitable part of getting older. What he didn't realize was that a few simple, ingrained habits, things he did without a second thought, were actively sabotaging his health from the inside out. I'm Dr. Benjamin Carter. For more than 20 years as a urologist and men's health expert, I've had the privilege of sitting with men like Arthur, men who have lived full lives but now face a chapter filled with quiet questions and unspoken fears about their changing bodies. My work isn't just about prescribing medication. It's about restoring connection, rebuilding confidence, and revealing the truth about male aging. And the truth is, so much of what men accept as normal decline is actually the result of misunderstood signals and damaging routines. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most private topics, self-pleasure after 60. We're not going to talk about shame or morality. We're going to talk about safety, vitality, and the hidden dangers in common practices that can impact your heart health, your nervous system, and your very ability to experience joy and intimacy. Most men believe they know their own bodies, but I'm going to share 4 silent mistakes that I see men make repeatedly, mistakes that turn a natural, healthy act into a potential source of physical and emotional depletion. These aren't abstract theories, they are patterns I've observed in my clinic for decades. And the 4th mistake is the most insidious, a mental trap that can drain your confidence and leave you feeling more isolated than ever before. But stick with me, because at the very end of our discussion, I'm going to reveal a single, often overlooked nutrient. It's a mineral that I call the master key to male sexual function, and a deficiency in it, which is incredibly common in men over 60, can silently undermine everything from the firmness of your erections to the health of your heart. You won't want to miss that. If you are ready to stop guessing about your health and start understanding your body on a deeper level, to age with power and dignity, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button now. By joining this community, you're making a commitment to yourself, a promise that you deserve to feel good, strong, and whole. And if this message is already speaking to you, type the word "ready" in the comments below. It lets me know we're on this journey together. Let's begin with the first and perhaps most physically damaging mistake. It stems from a deeply ingrained masculine ideal, the belief that power and force are the answer to everything. I call this the myth of the iron grip. I had a patient, Richard, a 72-year-old retired contractor. Richard had spent his life working with his hands, a strong man who prided himself on his physical capabilities. When he started noticing that his sensitivity had diminished and his arousal took longer, he did what he'd always done when faced with a challenge. He applied more force. His masturbation technique became aggressive, a death grip, as he later described it, trying to muscle his way to a climax that felt increasingly distant. He came to me not because of the lack of sensation, but because he'd started to notice a painful curvature in his penis, making erections uncomfortable and intimacy with his wife nearly impossible. Richard was terrified. He felt his body was betraying him, but in reality, he had been unintentionally damaging it for years. This is a classic and tragic example of what can happen. As we age, the delicate structures of the penis change. The skin thins, the blood vessels become less elastic, and the nerves, particularly the dorsal nerves that run along the top of the shaft and are responsible for the majority of sensation, become more vulnerable. When you apply excessive pressure or use rough, aggressive motions, you are causing microtrauma. You're creating tiny tears in the tissue and bruising the blood vessels. Your body's natural response to injury is inflammation and the creation of scar tissue. Over time, this scar tissue can accumulate inside the erectile chambers, a condition we call Peyronie's disease, which is exactly what Richard had developed. This scar tissue is inelastic. It doesn't stretch during an erection, leading to the bending, narrowing, and pain that he was experiencing. Beyond that, the constant, harsh stimulation can deaden the very nerves you're trying to excite. It's called penile neuropathy. The nerves become less responsive, which creates a vicious cycle. You feel less, so you apply more pressure, which causes more damage, which makes you feel even less. It's a slow, silent process of desensitization. This isn't just a mechanical issue, it's deeply tied to societal pressures. Men are often taught that strength is about being forceful, about overpowering obstacles. This mindset gets applied to our own bodies. We think we need to conquer our arousal to force a release. We lose the art of listening. Pleasure is not about force, it is about sensitivity. It's about blood flow and nerve signals, both of which are hindered by aggressive handling. The solution for Richard, and for any man who finds himself in this pattern, is to completely reframe the goal. The goal is not the orgasm, the goal is sensation. I guided him to practice a form of mindful touch, what we sometimes call sensate focus. This means abandoning the goal-oriented, forceful habit and starting over. I advised him to use a high-quality, water-based lubricant to reduce friction, and to use an open palm or gentle fingertips instead of a tight grip. The focus was to explore different sensations, pressures, and speeds, not to rush towards a finish line, but to simply notice what felt good, what felt alive. It was a process of resensitizing his body, of unlearning a lifetime of bad habits. It took patience, but slowly he began to reconnect with his body, not as an object to be controlled, but as a source of pleasure to be listened to. By treating your body with gentleness and respect, you protect its delicate structures, preserve nerve function for the long haul, and discover a more profound, less effortful pleasure. The second silent mistake moves from the physical to the chemical. It's a trap that has become incredibly pervasive in our modern world, and for men over 60, it can be particularly devastating to both sexual function and emotional health. I call it the dopamine mirage. Let me tell you about another patient, a man named Samuel, a 65-year-old retired accountant. Samuel was a creature of habit. Every morning, he'd use his tablet to watch intensely stimulating, fast-paced pornography to get himself aroused. He told me it was efficient, a shortcut to get the job done. But he came to me because his life was starting to feel gray. He loved his wife deeply, but he found he had almost zero desire for her. When they tried to be intimate, he struggled to get and maintain an erection without the memory of the videos he'd watched that morning. He felt a growing sense of shame and a disconnect that was poisoning his marriage. He said, "It's like my brain is broken, Dr. Carter. I know I should feel desire for my wife, but the switch is just off." Samuel's brain wasn't broken, but it had been rewired. His story is a perfect illustration of a process called dopamine desensitization. Dopamine is a powerful neurotransmitter in your brain. It's often called the motivation molecule. It's released when you anticipate or experience something rewarding, driving you to seek it out again. Sex, food, and achievement all trigger dopamine release. The problem with modern, high-novelty pornography is that it is a supernormal stimulus. It provides a flood of dopamine far beyond anything our brains evolved to handle. It offers an endless stream of new partners, extreme scenarios, and perfect performances that real life and real intimacy can never compete with. When your brain is repeatedly flooded with this level of intense stimulation, it does what any system does when it's overloaded. It protects itself by downregulating. It reduces the number of dopamine receptors. This is the desensitization part. The result is that the same old stimulus, including the genuine emotional and physical connection with a real-life partner, is no longer enough to get the system going. You need more and more intense, more and more novel stimulation just to feel normal. For a man in his later years, this is a dangerous game to play. Your hormonal balance is already more delicate. Your natural testosterone levels, which support dopamine function, are not what they were at 25. Your brain's ability to bounce back, its neuroplasticity, is still present but often slower. By relying on this external, supernormal stimulus, you are essentially training your brain to devalue real intimacy. You sever the sacred link between emotional connection and physical arousal. The warmth of a touch, the look in your partner's eyes, the shared history and emotional bond. These things, which are the true foundation of mature sexuality, get sidelined. The brain becomes conditioned to respond only to the frantic, impersonal stimuli from a screen. This leads to the grayness Samuel described. It's not just about erectile dysfunction, it's about a loss of life's color. It's a quiet slide into anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure from things that were once enjoyable. The solution for Samuel was a digital detox and a rewiring process. It was not easy. The first step was to completely eliminate the use of pornography. This is often met with resistance, as the brain craves its usual hit. I explained to him that he needed to allow his dopamine receptors time to heal and resensitize, a process that can take several weeks or even a few months. During this time, the focus shifted inward. Instead of relying on external images, I encouraged him to use his own mind, his memories, his fantasies, and his present moment sensations. We worked on reconnecting physical touch with emotion. I suggested he and his wife practice non-sexual touching, just holding hands, massage, and cuddling to rebuild the neural pathways that associate her touch with safety, warmth, and pleasure, without the pressure of performance. It was about teaching his brain that the most powerful aphrodisiac is genuine human connection. Over time, the fog began to lift. His desire for his wife slowly returned, not as a thunderclap, but as a gentle, growing warmth. He was reclaiming his brain, and in doing so, reclaiming his marriage and his joy. The third mistake is one that many men do completely unconsciously, especially at the peak moment of pleasure. It's a reflex that can put an enormous and sudden strain on your most vital organ, your heart. I call it the climax clampdown. I will never forget a patient named Leo, a vibrant 69-year-old who loved to garden and play with his grandkids. One morning, his wife called my office in a panic. Leo had fainted in the bathroom. When he came to, he was disoriented and had a splitting headache. After a thorough workup in the hospital, he was diagnosed with having had a transient ischemic attack, or a TIA, often called a mini-stroke. As we pieced together the events of that morning, a crucial detail emerged. The event happened immediately following a climax from masturbation. When I asked Leo to describe what that moment felt like physically, he said, "Well, you know, Doc. You brace yourself, you hold your breath, clench everything up, and push." Leo had been performing a powerful Valsalva maneuver at the moment of orgasm, and on that particular morning, it had nearly cost him his life. The Valsalva maneuver is the act of forcefully exhaling against a closed airway, which happens when you hold your breath and bear down. You do it when you lift something heavy or strain on the toilet. When you do this, you dramatically increase the pressure inside your chest and abdomen. This has several immediate and dangerous effects on your cardiovascular system. First, it squeezes the large veins, which reduces the amount of blood returning to the heart. Second, your heart rate and blood pressure skyrocket to try and compensate and push blood out against this immense pressure. Then, when you finally release your breath, your blood pressure can suddenly plummet before overcorrecting and shooting back up again. For a young man with perfectly elastic blood vessels, this might go unnoticed. But for a man over 60, who may have some underlying atherosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries, or slightly elevated blood pressure he doesn't even know about, this wild fluctuation is like revving an old engine into the red and then slamming on the brakes. It can dislodge a piece of plaque, leading to a stroke. It can trigger a cardiac arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat. In the most extreme cases, it can even cause a rupture of a weakened blood vessel in the brain. This habit of straining and breath holding is often learned over a lifetime. It becomes associated with the intensity of orgasm. Men think that clenching and pushing will make the climax stronger. But what you are actually doing is creating a state of physical emergency in your body at a moment of peak neurological and cardiovascular activity. Orgasm should be a release, a letting go. It should be a wave of parasympathetic relaxation that follows sympathetic arousal. But when you clamp down, you are fighting that natural process. You are keeping your body in a state of high stress, fight or flight tension. Even if it doesn't lead to an acute event like Leo's, the repeated strain over years can contribute to vascular damage and can even weaken the pelvic floor muscles, paradoxically leading to weaker ejaculations and bladder control issues over time. The solution is simple in concept but requires conscious practice. Breathe. The most powerful tool you have to combat this dangerous reflex is your own breath. I teach my patients to practice diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing throughout their day so it becomes second nature. And I specifically instruct them to focus on breathing during arousal. As you feel yourself approaching climax, consciously relax your jaw, your shoulders, your stomach. Instead of holding your breath in, let it out slowly. Exhale through the peak of the orgasm. This shifts the experience from one of tension and strain to one of release and surrender. It transforms the moment from a potential danger zone into a safe and deeply pleasurable experience. For Leo, learning this was not just a health tip. It was a life-saving practice that allowed him to enjoy his sexuality again without fear. Now we arrive at the fourth and most insidious mistake, because it doesn't happen in your body, it happens in your mind. It's about the emotional why behind the act, and getting this wrong can create a downward spiral of emptiness and isolation. I call this the emotional counterfeit. I remember George, a 74-year-old widower. His wife of nearly 50 years had passed away 2 years prior. He was a proud, stoic man, not one to complain. He came to me for a routine checkup, but I could sense a deep melancholy behind his eyes. He eventually admitted that he was struggling profoundly with loneliness. He told me that he often masturbated, not out of any real sexual desire, but as a way to cope with the crushing weight of his solitude. He explained, for a few seconds there's a release, the tension is gone, but then a few minutes later the emptiness comes back, only it feels heavier. It feels like I've just highlighted how alone I really am. George was using the mechanics of pleasure to try and fill an emotional void, and in doing so, he was inadvertently digging that void deeper. This is the emotional counterfeit. Using self-pleasure as a primary tool to manage negative emotions like stress, anxiety, boredom, or loneliness is like trying to quench a deep thirst with salt water. It seems like it should work, but it ultimately makes you more dehydrated. Here's the neurochemistry behind it. When you masturbate, your brain releases a cocktail of chemicals, including dopamine for reward and oxytocin and prolactin after orgasm, which can create a temporary feeling of calm or satisfaction. However, when the stimulus for this release is not genuine desire or self-connection, but rather an escape from a painful emotion, the experience is hollow. You get the chemical transaction without the emotional meaning. There is no real intimacy, no shared connection, no feeling of being seen or cherished. The brain registers this disconnect. The brief pleasure spike is followed by a post-orgasmic drop in dopamine, and without the buffering effect of real emotional fulfillment, this can feel like a crash. This is what leads to the feelings of sadness, guilt, or what's often called post-coital dysphoria that George was describing. For older men, this is a particularly dangerous pattern. At a stage of life where purpose, social connection, and emotional resilience are paramount to well-being, training your brain to seek a counterfeit solution to emotional problems can be devastating. It creates a feedback loop. You feel lonely, so you seek a moment of physical release. The release leaves you feeling even more alone, which reinforces the initial feeling of loneliness. It can erode your motivation to seek out genuine solutions, like calling a friend, joining a club, or engaging in a hobby. It becomes a form of self-medication that quietly drains your emotional reserves, leaving you feeling flat, unmotivated, and disconnected from the world. True vitality in our later years comes from an integration of mind, body, and spirit. Pleasure is meant to be an expression of that vitality, not a replacement for it. The solution for George wasn't to stop masturbating, but to change the why behind it. I encouraged him to first address the root feeling. When the urge arose from a place of loneliness, I suggested he try a pattern interrupt. Instead of immediately acting on it, he was to pause and call his son, or go for a walk in the park, or listen to a piece of music he loved. He needed to find healthier, more sustainable ways to soothe his loneliness. I also encouraged him to reframe self-pleasure as an act of self-care and connection, to be done from a place of calm and presence, not desperation. It's about checking in with your emotional state first. Am I doing this to escape, or am I doing this to connect with my own body in a positive way? This mindful distinction is the key to ensuring that pleasure energizes you rather than depletes you. These 4 mistakes, the iron grip, the dopamine mirage, the climax clampdown, and the emotional counterfeit, are not small things when repeated over months and years. They are the quiet thieves of male vitality. But recognizing them is the first, most powerful step toward reclaiming your health. This is not about fear. This is about empowerment. It's about trading ignorance for awareness and trading harmful habits for life-affirming practices. Imagine waking up and feeling connected to your body, not at war with it. Imagine experiencing pleasure that leaves you feeling energized and whole, not empty and depleted. Imagine fostering intimacy with a partner that is built on genuine desire, not a desperate search for stimulation. This is not a fantasy. This is the reality that becomes possible when you honor the intricate design of your body and mind. You have the power to rewrite the script of your own aging, to choose strength, sensitivity, and connection. And now, for the bonus piece of information I promised you, the hidden key that unlocks so much of male sexual health. The nutrient is magnesium. It is, without a doubt, one of the most critical minerals for male vitality, and it is estimated that up to 75% of adults are deficient in it, with the numbers being even higher for older adults due to changes in diet and absorption. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic processes in your body. Think of it as the relaxation mineral. For your sexual health, it is absolutely essential for 3 reasons. First, it is a crucial cofactor in the production of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the molecule that signals the smooth muscles in the arteries of your penis to relax, allowing blood to rush in and create a firm erection. Without enough magnesium, your nitric oxide production is impaired. Second, magnesium helps your muscles relax. This directly counteracts the climax clampdown we discussed. It helps prevent the dangerous tensing and straining, allowing for a smoother, safer release. Third, it calms the nervous system. Magnesium helps regulate neurotransmitters like GABA, which has a calming effect, helping to reduce the anxiety and stress that can be major barriers to arousal and performance. You can get more magnesium from foods like leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and dark chocolate. But for many men over 60, a high-quality supplement like magnesium glycinate or citrate, after speaking with their doctor, can be a complete game changer. It is a simple, foundational piece of the puzzle that supports everything else we've talked about today. You have listened, you have learned, and now it is time to act. Your health is not a spectator sport. If this conversation has opened your eyes, if it has given you even one piece of insight that you can use to improve your life, then please share this video with another man you care about. A brother, a friend, a father. Let's break the silence that surrounds these topics and empower each other with knowledge. Your journey is your own, but you do not have to walk it alone. Subscribe to this channel for more doctor-backed, compassionate advice designed specifically for men who are determined to make their later years their greatest years. And finally, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me which one of these insights resonated with you the most. What is one small change you will commit to making, starting today? I read every comment, and your engagement builds a community of men who are choosing to age with strength and wisdom. Remember, you have within you an incredible capacity for health and vitality. You deserve to feel confident, connected, and fully alive. Now go and claim it.